Good afternoon, everybody. Please, can we all hear me? Good afternoon, Mr. Gabriel Udo.
Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Ms. Juliana.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I think I'm waiting. The mentors are not yet in the meeting.
Thank you everyone for joining us. So I can see that Mr. Gabriel is around. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Chito. And I know that the other mentees will also be joining us. Mr. Gabriel, thank you so much for taking out your time to be with us. So with that, we would be going into the introduction of who we are, and then we'll be receiving the presentations from the mentees. So I'll be handing over to Hussein to continue moderating.
Sorry, very quickly, Juliana, did you see the email I just sent?
Yes.
About 3 minutes ago. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. For those present, welcome to the third quarter of JIIPCC program. Today, our session is on AI, Artificial Intelligence and Technology. So my name is Hussein. I'm the Assistant Program Coordinator, and I'll be telling us about the program shortly. Okay. JIIPCC Artificial Intelligence and Technology Mentorship and Internship Program is a quarterly program for students, young professionals, and enthusiasts across Africa. Mentees are afforded the opportunity to access valuable advice, training, network, mentorship, internship discussions, forums, industry updates, and resource materials from experienced mentors. The program seeks to encourage continuous training, development, and evolution in Africa and around the world. You can watch our videos by searching for JIIPCC on YouTube and Facebook #JIIPCC_MIP. Then the objective of the programs are to provide easy access to quality professional guidance, training, and resource materials for students, young professionals, and enthusiasts in Africa. Another objective is to facilitate dialogue and network among experienced and less experienced practitioners and stakeholders, and to transform mentees into mentors and leaders for the next generation, to facilitate further mentorship, internship, and scholarship and job placement for the mentees. So with that being said, I have some announcements to do. So the JIIPCC fourth quarter JIIPCC program registration is ongoing. So for those that are interested, you can register and you can also tell your friends about it. We also have the 30 minutes private mentorship, the VIP mentorship with our mentors. If you want to register for that, the link is bit.ly/JIIPCC_PM. So that's the link if you are interested in the 30 minutes private session with any mentors of your choice that you like. So lastly, the last announcement is we are having the JIIPCC Get Together Picnic in Abuja by 10th of December. So the link for registration will be shared shortly in the course of our program. That being said, welcome everybody that is just joining us again. And I want all of us to put up our videos because the program is currently live. The program is currently live, so please put up your videos and please edit the name section of your Zoom. If you have not done that, please do it. And I'll be reading the mentor's profile from here. So let me share my screen. Share screen. Okay. So the first mentor for today is Mr. Gabriel Udo. Mr. Gabriel is a research fellow and doctoral candidate in the Faculty of Law, Europa Universität Viadrina, Frankfurt, Oder, Germany, and recently won the Duchess Academischen. I am sorry, I cannot pronounce that last word very well.
Yeah, you can just call it the DAAD. I think that would suffice.
You said
that. You can just call it DAAD. That would suffice.
DAAD. Okay, thank you. I think that's a German word. I don't know.
Yeah, so, it is.
Founded position under the VIP Fellowship Program for the research project, Intelligent Weaponry Law and Ethics. His research specialties are centered mostly on artificial intelligence and law, smart city technologies, robotics, autonomous weapon technology, and international humanitarian law. Currently, Gabriel is a Beyond Fellow in the Ethics Group of the International AI Future Lab on Artificial Intelligence for Earth Observation, Technism, University of Munich. Okay. He holds a master's degree in international law, several certificates in artificial intelligence and machine learning, Python programming for data analysis, UAVs and small robotics. Gabriel has several publications in both local and international journals, having presented papers in India, Sweden, Australia, and others in these research areas. At leisure, Gabriel plays piano, chess, develops programs with Pythons, and listens to music. So that's about the first mentor. And the second mentor for today is Udomo Ali. Udomo Ali is the legal head of research for qualification checks, a leader in academics and professional verifications that seeks to protect the world from fake qualification and documents using technological capabilities. He is a legal researcher and co-founder of the Society of Artificial Intelligence and Law, a body devoted to promoting research in the field of AI law while seeking to create awareness of the legal issues associated with AI and machine learning. So thank you, both mentors, for choosing to mentor us today. So with that being said, we'll move to the PowerPoint presentation now. Please, I hope Group 1 in AI is ready with their PowerPoint presentation. Who is sharing the screen, please put up your screen. You have 10 minutes to present to our mentors. Please, you can share your screen now. You can start and unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself and start talking, please.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hope you cannot view my screen.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm presenting for Group 1.
Okay.
So our task borders on artificial intelligence governance. So the first slide contains the title or the topic on which I'm to speak on. Then the second slide now usher us into the definition of what artificial intelligence is. So from the screen, I'm sharing artificial intelligence is a novel branch of computer science. In such a case, there is no general acceptable definition as to what artificial intelligence is. There have been so many proponents on what artificial intelligence really is due to its novelty as it's an essence branch of computer science. However, from all the definitions gathered, there is some key points that are evident key elements, which includes that AI is the ability of computers to stimulate human behavior without human intervention. That means, it means that machines that respond to stimulation consistent with traditional responses from humans, what a human being can ordinarily do, machines are being ushered in to do these things. So, and from the first paragraph on what the definition of, on this slide, it said that artificial intelligence is a novel branch of computer science that has been noted as one of the disruptive forces that power the fourth industrial revolution. And one may likely ask what this a fourth industrial revolution is. It just comprises of bringing in the boundaries between artificial intelligence, digital and biological world, both physical, digital and biological world. You can now speak of AI, robotics, Internet of Things, that is IoT. Sorry, this is not contained in this the PowerPoint, as I wasn't the one that prepared this. So this fourth industrial revolution comprises of both the physical, digital and biological worlds. It involves AI, robotics, 3D printing, genetic engineering, quantum computing, and too many others. Then back down to the key elements that are that can be seen in most of the definitions of AI. It refers to that AI refers to machine that responds to stimulation that is consistent with traditional responses from humans, which is being given the human capacity to do things in a human way. Then we now go to the third slide, which deals with the benefits of artificial intelligence. Notwithstanding its novelty, it has too many benefits to human existence. One is its efficiency in delivering of works and services. Then the other is the safety it provides to do some things which ordinarily would be toxic to humans when a human is there to do such activities. And then the saves cost of production. There is an instance that where a machine can do something which 10 people are required to do. And instead of paying 10 people for such work to be done, a machine can actually minimize the cost of employing 10 people to do such work. And then it enhances the levels of services due to decrease in human errors and time, precise and timely to do works that are being assigned to it to be done. However, notwithstanding this benefit of AI, we also have the consequences or the challenges that are being posed by artificial intelligence. Then number one can be that being the over-reliance on this artificial intelligence by providing personal data of its subject can actually amount to data breach of data privacy of its subject. And then it also mimics human audio and visual characteristics. And it can also be used to disseminate fake information and lay out facts which are ordinarily not true to the public. Hope you are all following me.
Yeah, we are.
Yes.
Okay. It also amounts to dissipation of human accountability. Like it's kind of lay off humans' abilities to do things and employ that of machines, robotic activities, and then lay off humans' capacity to do work. Also, job and tax revenue loss due to its automation. Then proceeding to slide 4. The next slide, which deals on the regulation of AI. On this regulation of AI, there are different proponents. One was advocating that AI, since it's a nascent area of computer science and of technology, that it should not be regulated, as it's being regulated at this early stage will stifle innovation and advancement. They also argue that due to the novelty and nascent stage of the AI, the sector should be allowed to take form and shape first before laws are enacted to regulate it. They based their argument on the basis that bad laws lead to bad technologies. So it should be allowed to flame up first before you can think of regulating the activities or the branch of AI. Whereas other proponents, we are in for the regulation of artificial intelligence, in as much as they acknowledge the potential benefits of AI and also the risk of AI, but also still posit that there is need for regulation of AI in order to reap the full benefits of AI. Because if it's left unregulated, it might pose risk, both financially and otherwise. So, and according to them, regulating AI infuses it with acceptable human and societal values. Hence, it's beneficial to consumers. Then we are next to the other slide, which is slide 6, which deal on AI governance framework. Since there is no general acceptable definition of AI, there is still no universally accepted definition of AI. Here to rely on definition that relies on the organizational setup. So according to my work here, AI governance is a system of rules, practices, processes, and technological tools that are employed to ensure an organization's use of AI technologies align with that of organizations' strategies, objectives, and values, fulfill the legal requirements, and meet principles of ethical AI followed by the organization. So in an organization context, it is clear that AI will not exist in a vacuum. That is, there must be something standing for you to usher in artificial intelligence. There must be organizational set goals, principles, and values, and then incorporate that with that of AI so as to bring out the principles of both the organization, and then incorporate AI into the principles of organizations so as to ensure organizational set goals and the IT governance and corporate governance. So thus, AI must align with the overall objective, values, and text of the corporate data and IT governance for harmonious implementation. Otherwise, an organization runs the risk of exposure to operational, financial, regulatory, and reputational risk. So this borders on AI governance, that AI the governance of AI should not and cannot operate in a vacuum. There must already be an organizational framework, set goals, and principles that you have to imbibe with that of operation of AI in order to mark out a good operation of AI and its incorporation into that organization. Then going further, we talked about the modern AI governance framework. Then here we try to bring up case laws of authorities that had mention of the use or the application of AI in governance, in corporate environment, and others. Then from the first paragraph, it says that on 21st January 2020, the Personal Data Protection Commission of Singapore released an AI governance model framework that sets down the following guiding principles that can be adopted by organizations and countries. These principles are: one, that decisions made by AI must or should be explainable, transparent, and fair. And AI systems should be human-centric. This also followed from the last slide that deals on that AI governance framework. So it's still bringing out the fact that AI is not cannot just stand on its own. The AI governance cannot just stand on its own. There must be something there for it to operate effectively, which is that of organization. And then for that AI, it should be made more of human-centric, that of human capability, and must be explainable and transparent. Then in the use of AI cases in Africa, then we laid instances of Ubenwa. Ubenwa is an app kind of that uses AI to detect asphyxia in babies. If you go online, you can see, if you go online, you can actually see this app, which you can download and have access to in order to check the cries of a baby in order to detect the level of asphyxia, or if there is any, as to saving lives. It's actually saving lives. And then we also have that of MShell and tutorial, which provides accessible and extensive training and learning platforms to help teachers in the classroom. So this for tutoring purposes. Why that of Ubenwa is for detecting asphyxia in newborns. Then going further, we talked about the continuation of AI, regulation of AI. Then we have in instances where such has been made available for us in some African countries, such as Tunisia, Kenya, and Egypt and Rwanda. Then we move forward to case laws on AI governance in Africa. There are really not so many case laws on this novel area of computer science. So, but we are able to sieve out some of these case laws where at least a mention was made with respect to artificial intelligence, which we can see in that of Kenya High Court, in the case of William Odiambon Odio, an independent lecturer and boundaries commission and others, and also in that of Nubian Rights Forum and 2 others versus Attorney General and 6 others, and other case laws where a hate or that of AI, issue of AI was raised and acknowledged. In essence, AI generally has no general acceptable definition that this is what that in all spheres should be the governance definition of AI, so as its governance, because of its novelty as such. But there are still salient factors or core principles that must be imbibed in that of AI definition, which includes that it must be human-centric, and it must be given that of human capability and its stimulation, whereby robots, machines are being done that which humans can do, and it's also encouraged that AI governance should be recommended, so that AI should not operate in vacuum. There is need to be an end to the thing. If it's left to be an open-ended practice, there would be too many breaches of both personal data, human privacy, and extreme rise of cyber crimes. So there is need for the regulation of AI, and it's been recommended that it should be regulated. Then the last slide, we have that of references from which works were lifted up from. And then this brings to the end of my presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chitomba, for that wonderful presentation. So the group 2 presenter, please, you can come in now. who is presenting for group 2, please you can share your screen and also unmute yourself.
Just all right, good morning. Sorry, please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just a moment, please. I'm trying to see. Sorry, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for this wonderful session. All right, so I'll just launch into the body of the discourse and try to bring a perspective to what we have for us here today. All right, so good morning, everyone. My name is Adebayo Paul. I'm the presenter for Group 2, and we are going to discuss the synergy between AI ethics and machine supervision. AI ethics and machine supervision. All right, so on to the next slide, we look at the introductive aspect. And these are the key questions that we will be asking ourselves. All right, we funnel them into 2 different aspects. There's a bifurcation here. We have AI ethics, one part, and then we have the questions under it. Number 1 is, what does ethics depict to AI? Then how does it apply? All right, how does it apply in the same way as it does to humans? Then under machine supervision, we are going to be dealing with, is machine supervision linked with AI ethics? In other words, is there a synchrony between both? All right, so let's start with the definitions first. So we ask ourselves the question, what is AI? Now, AI is a multifarious concept, meaning that it has different meanings, all right? And so it means that it's not limited to one version. And so these variations can differ. AI can broadly be categorized under 4 distinct aspects. The first being as a discipline. So AI can actually be a discipline. The second being that AI can actually be a set of infrastructures. The third being that AI can be described as a concept. And the fourth being that AI can be described as resulting application and tools. So these are the 4 distinct concepts that AI can fall under. All right, but I will try to streamline my definition of AI to how it is a set of infrastructures. All right, so I would use the definition from the report by the Federal Trade Commission, the US Federal Trade Commission, from the article Combating Online Arms Through Innovation. And the definition of AI there is, artificial intelligence is the simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, especially computer systems. That's for AI. Then on to ethics. What does ethics mean? Now, ethics can actually be described as a set of moral principles that help the people discern between the right and wrong. That is just ethics plainly. The plain definition of ethics is that it's just trying to strike a balance. Or is it striking a balance? No, striking a disparity. Yes, that's the word, striking a disparity between right and wrong. And so AI ethics is actually a set of guidelines that advise on the design and outcomes of AI. So it means that AI ethics actually operates on 2 different balances. The first balance being that it is a proactive approach. The second being that it has a reactionary effect, right? So it is the proactive approach that helps you with AI ethics. So when you are training your data set, AI ethics is very important because it actually provides you with the policy framework that helps you to train your data properly. And then the other aspect has to do with the reactionary balance, because one thing about AI is that AI is actually prone to biases, definitely. And so because AI is limited by the biases of the data sets that through which it is trained. So for instance, if we have in an employment setting where we have maybe an AI, of course, definitely in the US now we have instances where AI is being used in the labor force now. So we have an instance where Caucasian males are actually trained with a data set. All right, so one thing that happens is that AI is only limited to that data set to which it is trained. And so this is one of the things that AI ethics does. It helps you to know how to apprehend situations even before they happen. So that's a premonitionary move. And then it also helps you with how to react to the situations, all right, when they happen. So moving on to the next, we can see definitely that innovation actually outpaces government legislation. And this is very important. We must understand this. Innovation outpaces government legislations. Now, the first speaker from the first group was speaking about what we call the fourth industrial revolution, which now taking a cue from that and trying to, I'll try to leapfrog on that and try to expound on it. Now, if you look at the fourth industrial revolution, now the way information doubles nowadays is different from the way it used to double back then in the 1970s, the 80s, and the 90s. Data has become replete. Information has become abundant these days. And then we are having information, becoming many, definitely with vices as such as, data privacy problems or issues arising from it. And so one of the things is that government legislations cannot actually apprehend everything. And so what legislations are actually trying to do is that they are trying to meet up to the standard. And this is something that is going on. I think in the case of Robert versus unknown persons, it was a United Kingdom's case. It's based on cryptocurrency. Because definitely crypto assets are new to the British law. So what the court had to do was the court had to descend into the field of judicial activism to apply to apply the relevant substantive procedures to be able to apply to it. All right, so about three things that must be involved with AI. Three things that must be involved with AI. The first being that there must be respect for persons. Sorry, can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
You can hear you.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So from the Belmont report, we have number one, we have that there must be respect for persons. There must be respect for persons. Very important. AI must necessarily have respect for persons. All right. I'm trying to find a common ground between AI ethics and machine supervision now. Now, what something about AI ethics is that AI ethics actually teaches you or tells you that you must have respect for persons. That means that you must even incorporate understanding marginalized communities. So you don't want to have an AI system that will begin to that we have a marginalization effect. That's very important. Then also number two is that there must be beneficence. Very, very important. It means that the AI must actually must actually be beneficial. That's it, must be beneficial to the system. Then the third is that there must be justice applied to it. Now, I'm sorry I missed this in passing, but there are three things naturally that AI is set to do. I'm so sorry I'm mentioning it at this point. There are three things normally that AI does. The first thing it does is that it augments. It is either it augments, that means that it helps you to further expound on your knowledge. Number two is it can replace, which means that it can replace human understanding. And the third one is that it can actually replicate what man can do. Now on to machine supervision. Now machine supervision actually has to do with it also operates on the two balances of the proactive and the reactionary, or let me say the proactive and the reactive. Yeah, let me use that word, the proactive and the reactive. And these are the two things it also does as well. That's for machine supervision. So what it does is that whilst you are training your data set, it helps you to understand exactly. It helps you to train because there's always the need for an independent human agent that can actually bring perspective to the situation, so that in a case, it must be a human that trains the system. Okay, this is how you're going to operate. All right. So so machine supervision has to do with a supervised machine learning actually has to do with a human agent, an independent human agent, actually providing an oversight function to know the data sets that are used for the AI. And it's also after the process, it also checks through, and when it sees that there are biases in the system, all right, so it attends to it. All right, so moving on to the third slide now. All right, so with station of data set in machine language 0 and 1. Not necessarily that it's the imputation, definitely ethics does not seem like it's really imputing something like a detail. But what we are trying to say there is that AI ethics actually provides us with the ability to train the data with policy framework. That is what we mean by imputation, definitely. All right, because it has to do with the feeding in of data into the system. So then looking here, we said AI ethics is equivalent to machine supervision. Now, this is the distinction between synonymity and sameness. It does not mean that they are the same. It only means that there is synonymity between both, in that during the process of using AI ethics, machine supervision is very important, and machine supervision also helps to apply AI ethics into the system. Into the system. Then we have machine supervision centers around algorithm trained to impute data that has been labeled for a particular output. All right. Then this goes that AI ethics and machine supervision work hand in hand. All right. Then on to the next slide. Just a moment, please. On to the next slide. All right. So what does AI ethics? What do you think it can do? Number one, it turns data into real actionable insight. Another one is that it enables organizations to use data to understand and prevent unwanted outcomes or to boost desired outcomes. Some of these could include forecasting supply, determining customer value, forecasting sales, detecting fraud, and all that. Now, on to the last slide. Yes, this is the last segment. Now, AI ethics and machine supervision are very sensitive to data set, which means that they are very important. All right, they have utmost importance. That then any error input as data set will be given as output, which means that when you impute the wrong thing, you always get the wrong thing back. So, given the results to be void or skip. Sorry, I think I've come to the end of my lecture. Thank you so much for providing us this platform to hear our views. Thank you very much. And thank you also to the mentors for bearing us through. Have a good day.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Prophet Paul Adebajo. That was very insightful and interesting. So I'll be calling on our mentor that is available now, Udomo Ali, to comment on it and talk to us about it.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to commence my discussion by providing some further insight into what the first commentator said during the previous session when she discussed about artificial intelligence and its governance within Africa and in Nigeria generally. I think the best the best point to start with or from is by looking or having an insight into what the whole industrial revolution is all about. I will say that we stand on the brink of a technological revolution that will probably fundamentally alter the way we live, the way we work, the way we relate with one another, and both from the public and private sector to academia and even the civil society. The first industrial revolution used to be, or if I'll say it utilized water and steam power to mechanize production. The second industrial revolution used electrical power to create mass production. I believe the third industrial revolution as well used electronics and information technology to automate production. So we can probably see a chain and the different alterations that have happened. Use of power and steam to mechanize production, the use of electric power to create mass production. Then in the third revolution, you now use electronics and IT, information technology, to automate production. Now, the fourth revolution, which is the 4IR, is building on, so many persons have tended to see it as an elongation of the third, or a prolongation, if I'll say, of the third industrial revolution. And so what it's using, or what it's doing right now, is it's using digital revolution that has occurred since towards the middle of the last century. It's characterized by a fusion of technologies that is blurring the lines between physical, digital, and biological spheres. So there are reasons why today's transformations represent not merely a prolongation, but actually an arrival of a fourth industrial revolution, which is quite funny because in Africa, Africa is currently experiencing a demographic boom that is largely young and urban. I mean, unlike countries similar to Germany, where you have the median age about 47.1, in the US, you probably have, where is it now? In the US, you probably have about 38.1 as the median age. Um, the demographic African youth is expected to double 225 million by 2055. And so African states are facing pressures to deliver services rapidly to the rapidly growing metropolitan areas where production is largely undergoing, and it's including stubborn poverty, political instability, and a plethora of security threats. So far, developments in Africa when it comes to artificial intelligence have been predominantly driven by private sector technology actors. African governments have had probably little effect on the development on AI in Africa. So when you now talk about governance in Africa, it's more or less like you are saying it's something that it's still abstract to some African governments. It's something that is still abstract in some climes within the African continent. AI's application to a defined problem is not typically applied in a neutral way. Let me be more practical, probably. Startups in Ghana and Nigeria are addressing doctor shortages and the lack of medical access for rural Africans. They've begun to use AI to empower doctors and leverage growing medical problems or mobile problems as a vehicle for collecting data. In both Kenya and Nigeria, AI-focused startups have begun working on agricultural planning, reducing financial transaction costs. We have a lot of them here in Nigeria, Flutterwave in Lagos, and the whole lot that you have springing up, unified payment system. They're all trying to see how they can use AI or technology to reduce financial transaction costs. And then you also have in some clients in Rwanda, improving public transportation access and efficiency. Education has also been a focus of startups like what the initial discussant said, Shule and Tuteria. It has provided accessible and extensive training and learning platforms to help teachers in the classroom. So that's why when she said it, it struck to my head because it's something that's it's growing and its effects and benefit has been seen implemented within the African continent. So governments in AI-rich countries, and when I say AI-rich countries, we're just few in Africa. So governments in AI-rich countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and definitely South Africa have taken a supportive but cautious approach. AI is growing when it comes to technology in artificial intelligence. It's still a growing phenomenon within Africa. However, within these countries that I've just mentioned, particularly these four countries, Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa, it has had a predominant or proportionate increase as opposed to other African countries. So monetary support for AI research and development alongside the promotion of STEM, that's the science education, have taken priority over AI's integration within government agencies and most likely to remain this way in the near future. Now, talking about governance, AI governance in Africa or in AI governance institutions in Africa, there seem to be some negative traits when it comes to AI and the potential of AI in Africa. So to curtail the potential for negative AI, this would probably bring me back to what the last discussant mentioned regarding artificial intelligence and ethics. Ethical usage of AI is a bane. It's something that has come up as discussions, topical issues in almost every conference you have that has to do with artificial intelligence or technology generally. I mean, thankfully, some organizations within Africa has been trying to promote the discussion and also initiate policies when it comes to African artificial intelligence usage or generally data and internet usage. One that comes to my mind so easily is the African Internet Governance Forum. I think their conference is next week in Malawi. They usually hold the conference annually across different countries. So this is like a forum where you tend to have discussants coming to address issues, pertinent issues to internet and its governance in Africa. You may probably just want to follow it up. You can attend virtually. You can be there in person if you can. But who owns the AI? Who owns the usage of AI? Who created it? Privacy rights, human rights perspective, ethical use, data policy, big data, machine learning, just like he said. They are all topical issues that have been brought to the fore when you're talking about AI, its usage, before now talking about the governance in Africa. So there are lots of negative threats or incidences that have been raised up. However, to curtail the potential for negative AI, we need to look at the nexus between global, regional, and local governments in order to establish a common framework. Now that brings me back to the first discussant, where she mentioned that we do not have a single framework, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa, that has to do with AI governance. So we need to look at the nexus between global, regional, and local in order to establish a common framework for effective governance of internet-enabled technologies now, not just AI, because AI is, for me, I'm defining AI as AI is a buzzword. It's like a blanket term that you use to refer to a whole lot of plethora of things: machine learning, data science, Internet of Things, big data. So a accumulation of all these is what I'll term artificial intelligence, because they're all technology. So such a framework, if created, should ideally attempt to curtail the malignant use of internet. Not just internet now, but you have internet, data, and AI applications generally. I think in 2018, in 2018, Microsoft formally launched its campaign for a digital Geneva Convention to advance industry and civil efforts to reduce, according to them, in their words, I wrote it down here. In their words, they said they want to reduce the dangers of malicious and escalatory state behavior in cyberspace. We've seen a whole lot of other inventions coming up when it comes to artificial intelligence. My Samsung introduced the Samsung Neon, I think it was in 2019 or early 2020. It's a robot, kinda, just like you have Sophia in Saudi Arabia that has been given a citizenship. But you have the Samsung Neon. It's not a smartphone. It's a robotic being that just doesn't have blood, but has and can exhibit the entire features of a human being. And so, according to Samsung, the idea behind that is to have according to them, a best friend, a non-human best friend that you can always rely upon. So then you tend to look at your privacy, the ownership. Is your data being sold out? Why are you having a human being that probably become a lawyer, a doctor, a judge, a nurse, a teacher, and yet doesn't have human feelings? How can a machine read? How can it make justified decisions? Because it's the data that have been fed into it that it will use to make rational or rationalized decisions. So who is feeding that data? How are we sure that data is right? All those things come into play when you talk about ethical usage, and then on a more general term, global governance or continental governance of artificial intelligence. Summarily, the African continent will be forced to face unique challenges with negative AI. I mean, we've had weaker governance structures, transitioning democratic norms, and highly salient ethnic and religious divisions all these will likely minimize the damage associated with negative AI. So if African governments can cooperate with a common governance framework for AI, this will simultaneously, engage with local academic and entrepreneurial experts and possibly mitigate the potential for negative AI. And we won't probably be having AI ethical issues anymore. I mean, it's not as if we're going to just fade it away. It will always be there. Continuous research on ethical usage of AI and machine learning, which is the more like technical term for artificial intelligence, notwithstanding. But if we can have this common governance framework or frameworks, depending on the region or the country that wants to establish same, it will go a long way in reducing the ill use of artificial intelligence and probably mitigate the negative usage, and then will limit on the discussions regarding ethical usage. Because right now in Africa, we've not even gotten to that discussion yet fully of ethical usage. We're still discussing about its application. How best can we apply AI? Advanced clients, they've gone way past that on its application by creating all these softwares or technology that they can use to ease their life. Over here, we're not even talking about application. We're not even talking about ethics yet. We're still trying to make people understand that you can use this software, you can use this technology to ease your day-to-day business, your study, your school, your work, entrepreneur, in government, anywhere. Before now, we can advance to. So I think we're just kind of in a hurry. No, maybe in a hurry. We're discussing about its usage, and we're also discussing about ethical usage. One needs to come before the other. Are people using this software first? Are people using this technology? So many persons in the world today or in Africa are using all these AI technologies, but it's just that they've not come in terms of the fact that this is AI. Your smartphone, your computer, your TV, everything, it's all AI. But we still think it's just our smartphone. How are we so sure that our data isn't shared with some third-party user? And so while such an outcome by the outcome now I'm referring to a common framework, is unlikely to be easily implemented if created, it is paramount that global and regional governance institutions seek to enable and strengthen pro-social African actors who will be at the forefront championing this technological revolution. I think I'll end there, and that will be my comment. But I really had some good insight from the two discussants talking about AI governance, which is a really topical issue, and then artificial intelligence, ethics, and machine learning. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Domo Ali. That was very, very deep, educative, and you really took your time to touch the two areas the first and second presenter presented on. That was a good lecture. Thank you very much. A special thank you for you for giving us such a beautiful lecture and comment. So the next person will be Gabriel Udo. Also need some comments from you too.
Okay, hello. Thank you. It's nice to see you, Domo. It's been it's been quite a while. I think it's time to finally put the first thing. We had conversations on LinkedIn, and for some time I was completely lost. Yeah, thank you very much, Juliana, for inviting me again. I actually currently have another meeting ongoing. So when I told you I needed to take a pause, I was invited to make a comment on the other meeting. So I'm just switching between devices, and yeah, it's a little bit hard to get the balance, but then. So let me quickly first, let me just, take it from where Udomo ended. I got quite a few very nice points, and I think he's made a very, very impressive contribution to the conversation. So it's difficult to add much to what he has said because what he has said is, I think it covers virtually everything I realize he's trying as much as possible not to get into the very technical discussions in this, considering the audience. I think so. Okay, so first, starting from the last point he made about you made, I'll get into the presentations, the first and the second one, especially the first one that I heard mostly. The question was whether we are in a hurry to, have an AI governance framework. We've had these conversations in the past 2 years, and most of the people I get to speak with give me the same impression I get today, that yeah, we're in a hurry, especially in Africa. We don't need to, let's even understand how to use technologies first before we start thinking of ethics and legal considerations in the use. But this has been my personal opinion from research, and I think this is the problem that the global north is having now, some parts of Europe and in the US. We agree that technology runs a lot, it's usually the technological developments are faster than legal adjustments. So the technology comes normally before the lawmakers sit down to think, okay, how do we regulate this? But I think it should be the other way around. I think it's never too early. I usually use the process of getting pregnant and having a baby. I'm not sure whether there's anybody or any family that begins to buy things after the baby is born. Even when the baby's gender is not known, there's usually the perception that, okay, let's just buy clothes and let's think of what the baby's going to eat and all that. Now, Europe, or the global north especially, is having the problems, especially data privacy problems, because the technologies came long before there was any regulation for them. And this is the problem. I think Africa has the opportunity. Now, we are not, when it comes to artificial intelligence, Africa is nowhere near the global north. I am very certain of this. We have countries that have gone really far. Rwanda has done quite a lot. Last month, I went for a conference in Sweden, and they talked about smart cities in Africa, and I was surprised because there are some areas I never knew had been, converted into full smart cities. Rwanda has that. South Africa has that. A whole community that is smart, unquote. Everything is automated, and yeah, so even with this, you can't compare this to countries like Germany, Finland, Sweden, and where this discussion, even Lagos, we have smart estates. I think we have one in Lagos that we discussed, and yeah, so we are not at the level of the global north yet. But in my opinion, the best time to think of an AI governance structure is now. So we have a structure before the technology comes. Okay, you certainly don't want to have the problems that Europe is having now with data protection, data privacy, and even with the GDPR and the proposed Artificial Intelligence Act. Now everyone is struggling to put laws in place where the technology is already there, and it's more difficult. But Africa could learn from this and get structures in place to make sure that by the time the technology comes, we already have a structure that it fits in. It also goes all the way back to what should we even design? What should we have? It's not about having something and then thinking of how to use it, because ethical problems come from the definition of the problem itself. What problems do we have in our society? How can we solve it? If you say, for instance, we have a problem of there are areas in our city that are just slums. We want to use some kind of technology to fix these places. The question is, why do you call them slums? There are ethical implications right from the definition of the problem itself. So you need to know what technology should even be allowed, what terms should we even use before we start building these technologies. Okay, that aside, there's also the conversation about having a common global framework, and I try to avoid the word global because we're going to have another round of problems. There's this issue about data colonialism, data colonization, or data colonialism, some people choose to call it. There's normally, even when we transplant laws, you can see from the laws we got from Britain and some other, of course, we've also copied some parts of the GDPR and had the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation. Ghana has a similar law. And now we're also thinking of an Artificial Intelligence Act. I'm not sure how that's going to work in Nigeria. But first, we have to look at the context. We need to understand that societies differ. We cannot bring a law that is wholly applicable in society A to society B, because first, there are going to be sociocultural differences. You're going to have society. For instance, you can watch people can be, there are certain pornographic sites that are allowed in some parts of the world. But of course, in Nigeria and the rest, some other parts of the world, this is not allowed. So this is the first thing to understand, the differences in all the societies that are involved in all this. There has to be considerations as to what would fit into the society before we now make law. So even in normal technology, even in the cars that we drive, we consider our local problems, and then we see how we can solve it with our local mentality first. If you bring 80% of the cars that are driven here in Germany, if you bring them to Nigeria, you can't drive them from Lagos to Ibadan because you're going to mess up. It's not even going to climb through some bombs that people put in front of schools. So you have to, when you build cars, for instance, you need to consider the market. Where am I getting this technology to? What are the problems that they have? How is this technology going to specifically solve their problems without creating more problems? So having a global perception towards artificial intelligence is going to be faulty, especially for Africa. So we need to, it's okay to grab, the foundations from the rest of the world and then see how we can fine tune it to fit into our society. If we are going to make a law, let's look at our society. Right now, the NDPR has certain deficiencies because we just copied it from the GDPR. We still have laws as old as, the Infant Relief Act of 18 whatever, and you're wondering, what are we still doing with those laws now? So these are considerations. We need to look at artificial intelligence from our own local perspective. What kind of problems do we have? You can place cameras here in Europe, and you're sure that to a certain level there's safety. But if you do that on Lagos Ibadan Expressway, it's going to be stolen at night. So the first problem you need to solve is security, instead of just thinking of, okay, AI, and then you think of laws. You first have to make a law to ensure that if somebody steals, it restricts people from stealing these things. Of course, that's, something that we've been trying to do over the years. So yeah, to get an AI governance structure, we first need to look at our society. What kind of society do we have? And what kind of structure do we have before we bring in? Because like I mentioned in earlier sessions we've had, artificial intelligence is just going to promote whatever you have on ground. Technology generally, if you have crimes, it's going to promote it. If you have a beautiful society, it's going to enhance those nice things. If you have a society where there are certain considerations, ethical considerations, artificial intelligence is going to come with its own. But we need to be careful with the thing we bring in the name of globalization. We're trying to catch up with the rest of the world. And let me get straight to the first presentation. The first person mentioned, just quickly said that artificial intelligence is a machine. I think I saw that in one of the slides, the second or the first slide. And I usually don't think artificial intelligence is a machine itself. Artificial intelligence is a technology. It's more like, the mentality. It's not the machine itself. There are machines that are not artificially intelligent. You have a car that cannot drive itself, but you can have a technology that makes the car to drive itself. So this is something that most researchers are still some adjustment that most researchers are trying to, to make. You have to adjust to understand that artificial intelligence is not a machine. It's not even a mechanism. It's the technology that drives whatever machine. It's like a human being that has a brain, or that has a thinking, or that has a culture and all that. So that's why it's not something it's not something tangible you can hold. Okay, that's the first. And then there's also the issue of, let me quickly, this person, the first slide, the first presenter talked about the benefits and the challenges. And I want to generally talk about the challenges of the use of artificial intelligence. I've seen so many of them here. And there are so many ethical challenges, but the challenges are not just concentrated on the use of the technology itself. The challenges come from, like I mentioned earlier, how did we define the problem to how do we solve the problem? So it's a long process. The process involves problem definition, data collection. Of course, some of them can be automated. It's the mid process that have processes are automated, and this is where artificial intelligence comes in most of the times. So you could have a fair system, but the process itself is bad. If you train a system, a machine learning algorithm or a machine learning model is being trained by someone that has certain biases. The system itself, the technology is good, because it's been trained for a particular purpose. But the process of training it is faulty. The person who trains the system has a faulty mentality. So we need to look at the problems right from who is involved, and also in whose hands, I heard that in the second presentation, in whose hands is the technology. The same technology that can be used to save lives can be used to kill people. So we need to really look at the solutions from farther away than just the points where this is used. I'm sure we're also thinking about the future. In the next couple of years, we're going to lose jobs, but what's actually going on at the moment. And this is one of the comments I needed to make. And generally, I should just say, let me especially thank Udomo, because I think most of the things I would have loved to say, he has said it in his own commentaries. And I think this was quite an eye-opening opportunity also for me. I learned a lot from meetings like this and presentations of this lecture. So thank you, and thank you very much, Juliana, for the invitation. Thank you.
It seems.
Yeah, it seems there's a problem with the connection back at home.
No, I think Juliana, probably her internet, she had gone off a bit.
I think she's back now. Juliana is back.
Sorry, my internet went off.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay. So I think you're done with the comment, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gabriel, for the comment also. So just before we go into the question and answers, I would like us to put our videos on so that we can take a picture. Now, the reason for this is so that our archive that we attended this session, and secondly, for the mentees to be able to post this on LinkedIn and tag the mentors, write what you learned, post it on LinkedIn and tag your mentors so that they can see what you got from the session. So I can see that Elizabeth's video is on. Hi, please just put your videos on, put your videos on, put your videos on, take a picture, put your videos on, put your videos on, yes. Thank you, Atta. Thank you, Irat. Thank you, Elizabeth. Put your videos on, take a picture. So with that, we will be going into the Q&A.
Okay. The first question is
from so I don't know, is Hussein here?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
The first question is for Mr. Udomo. So in terms of branches involved in AI products, who gets to be held liable? The machine, the investor, or the user?
I mean, that's a topical question if you ask me, because it has popped up in several forums for discussion. And I'm going to use this analogy in answering that question. There is this scenario I heard in a forum, actually, on internet and data usage sometime, I think 2 years ago. And it had to do with the production of music. So we have softwares that are created by humans anyway, but that can create the rhythm of a song. So you'll be surprised to realize that some of the songs that we listen to produced by musical artists were actually produced by a machine. The only thing that the human did was probably to write the words, but the rhythm, the beats, and everything were produced by a machine. So they just had to sit down and say the words, then the machine will create the sound, and they'll be like, okay, I think this is nice, or no, I don't think this is nice, change another one. And that was it's not as if they had to create anything. So who now owns the right or ownership to that song? Is it the person who created the machine? Is it the user of the machine who owns the right, the ownership of that musical content? That's it was a court case some time ago by the Beatles, a popular music group. Anyway, in answering is straightforward. Ownership, or who owns the liability or whatever it is the owner, the person who created the machine. That's the person that will bear the liability for it, straight up.
Okay.
But then this is subject to whatever other law within the country or jurisdiction that machine or that software is applicable. So if there's a statutory connotation, or there's a provision within the statute or by regulation or practice that this is what's supposed to be done in situations like this, then we know that, okay, this is an exception. Why this isn't really so practicable with us here is because we do not have that law yet. We do not have the statute, we do not have the regulation. That's why we're still in a quandary as to, okay, who owns the right or who owns the liability.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Udoma. I hope that answers the question perfectly. For Mr. Gabriel, is it possible to direct principles or laws to bridge the wide gap between the rich and the poor in terms of AI services?
Yeah. Once again, this is more of an ethical issue because I think we already have laws that attempt, try to bridge the rich-poor gap in the use of AI services. For instance, there are certain legal provisions, not directly in AI laws or technology-related laws, that insist on keeping the prices of certain goods and services at a certain level. Because if you keep the price of a Tesla car, for instance, at $100,000 or 100,000 euros, you're efficiently saying that a certain group of people should not be able to buy the car. So if you get a law that tells you that you cannot build any car that keeps prices above this level, then you effectively control that rich poor gap. And of course, it's very important because one of the major problems we're going to have with the use of artificial intelligence services, especially, is going to be the rich poor thing. And right now in Nigeria, it's scary what can happen when, of course, we understand when we mean the rich and the poor, it's usually sounds like the bad and the good. And just have a mental picture of what happens when your personal data, for instance, has been automatically collected and has been handed into the wrong hands because he's wealthy enough to buy the information, or he has access to the source of that information and you don't. So yes, it's very possible to do that, and it's very simple. We can use laws. If ethics is not strong enough to control it, we can make laws that directly reduce. I've given one of the instances with the use of prices in technology. That's the first. There are many other instances, but this is the easiest. You can also even use data protection laws that we already have, if you properly enforce them, to control what a data subject is exposed to. Because you can place, for instance, somebody can be wealthy enough, you place a camera in front of your house that is automated to take photographs of anybody that's passing by. But then what happens to the people that are coming to, of course, in Nigerian context, you know that such rich compounds, you have people that are selling water in front. Should it be allowed to take pictures without the knowledge of the people that are just coming to fetch water and go back home? There's so many contexts. You can make laws to control this, to reduce this, and there are so many ways this can be done. So yes, it can be done.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gabriel Udo. Now is a vote of thanks. Thank you very much, all the mentors and the mentees. I will hand over to Ms. Juliana. Take over from here. I want to pray now.
Thank you very much, Gabriel, for answering that question. And also thank you, Udomo. Thank you, Hussein, for moderating. And thank you, everyone, both the mentors and the mentees. I can see that Prophet's hand is up, so I don't know if you would like to quickly ask his question before we round up for today.
All right, good afternoon, ma'am. So can you hear me, please?
Yes.
All right. All right then. All right. So I just want to direct a question to Mr. Gabriel. He said something about I think it was based on the second question that that's the rich-poor divide. Now I think recently there was I think a 13-year-old American, Benjamin Choi, that actually created an AI-propelled prosthetics that was actually cheaper than the normal price of the normal prosthetic arms. Now my question is, shouldn't there be shouldn't there be an obligatory duty on the part of companies that actually project these technologies to find a way to maybe help startup investors and to just create an AI that's actually affordable, that's actually at an affordable price? Or does it still have to stand as a moral duty that anyone can decide to do? That's my question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prophet Paul. I think that it's more of an economic problem. You know, in a capitalist system, it's difficult to tell somebody how to make his money. In Nigeria, we have this thing that a lawyer can take 1 billion naira for drafting an agreement, and all he needs to say if he gets to court is to say, I can decide whatever I want to charge for my services. And this is the same problem with, it's an economic problem, basically. So if a company decides to, basically keep the prices of things low, first of all, in a democratic society with a capitalist economy, it's going to be very difficult to tell somebody, this is how much you can sell this, or you have to keep your products at this level. That's the one side to the question. But if you also want to look at it from the economic perspective, you can create competition. In Nigeria, when we had only Globacom some years back, I remember we used to pay, there was no pay second billing. Once you start making a call, even if the person takes it and drops it, your 15 naira is gone. So people used to spend a lot of money. But when MTN came and said, okay, we are now doing per second, it got to a point, you know, so the market can fix itself. We can have competitions. People come in with lower prices, and you know, if you're selling very expensive, somebody would rather go for the other one. They need to drag the prices down. That's from the economic perspective. But also governments can look at legal ethics. The problem with ethics is you cannot force people into, you know, into getting things right. You can only tell them what you think is proper, and then you find a law to force people into it. And that's something that most societies, most democratic societies don't want to do. So in that situation, like I mentioned earlier, it's okay if the government decides to take the bull by the horn and say, okay, whatever you're selling to us, whatever you're producing must be left at this price. So you can choose to spend more in production, you can choose to spend less in production, but whatever you're going to sell to the market must be at this price range. But from experience, I'm not sure that's going to go very well in the democratic society and with the numerous economic issues that we already have. Yeah, so I agree that's a major problem, but then it can mostly be solved economically. Or the government can also fund smaller companies. Okay, get this money, or research agencies or institutes, get this money, like it's done in most other countries. Get this money. We want you to produce, if they're producing mobile phones at 100,000, we want you to produce a mobile phone that is 10,000 and does the same things with the other one. It's possible. They'll just reduce a couple of things and bring out the same technology. Once that's available in the market, every other company is going to be forced to come down to that level. So these are the other ways of looking at it, in my opinion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gabriel, for that answer. So I don't know if Udomo would like to say something before we round up.
Actually, I'm good. You know, sorry, I was trying to join in another meeting I have now, but I'm good here.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today. A very big thank you to our mentors. Thank you, Gabriel, for coming. Thank you, Udomo, for coming. We appreciate your time. We appreciate the knowledge shared, and I'm sure that we've learned a lot. And to everyone who presented today, Chito and Prophet, thank you so much. People did amazing. And to the groups that came together to research, Thank you for working together. Your assignments for the next week will be given to you. Please feel free to post about this on LinkedIn using the picture and tag your mentors while you write what you have learned. So with that, we'll be saying bye and have an amazing weekend. Thank you, Hussein, for moderating. Take care, everyone. Bye. Love you all.
Bye.
Happy weekend.